Well, we fixed Football Manager's training system. Or to be more precise, Football Manager Match Lab fixed it. And as you might already know, training has been broken in Football Manager for years. In fact, Football Manager's training system is so bad that, as I've told you before, the best strategy is to do absolutely no training at all. And I mean, you can do that to get ahead, but that's not why you're playing Football Manager, right? I mean, it's cool to find Easter eggs in games like this, but that can also be really frustrating. And so we looked pretty deep for a solution. And the thing is that this comes at a really important time. Okay, let's talk about this straight on. Sports Interactive is in a lot of trouble. I mean, the last news that we've heard about the new game was the cancellation of FM25. I guess it's still a little bit early, but it's also May 2025, and so far we have heard absolutely nothing about Football Manager 2026. In other words, when it comes to things like, updating Football Manager and making the community happy, making the game better, keeping the game relevant, well, it looks like right now the responsibility is falling on us, the community. In other words, the company is apparently not doing it. I don't know. Anyway, given these problems, the community started fiddling around with the match engine a few months ago. As you might know, this all started because of a Chinese mod that made the rounds over on FM Arena. A lot of the physics engine of Football Manager lives in this file, simatch.fmf, and we've figured out how to go in and change things. Now, this has involved a lot of testing and a lot of tinkering. Yeah, I've seen the criticism out there. I know that a lot of you are worried that this project is just a bunch of kids who don't know what they're doing, who are kind of messing around with the code and screwing things up. But the truth is that we actually have a lot of professional coders on the team who know what they're doing and who have spent extensive time testing this file. It's possible that when you play it, you might not like your results at first, but you have to remember that you need kind of a bigger sample size to see the impact that the new file has on how the game is played. And the thing is that it works. This system that we have works very well. In fact, if you use the most recent file that Football Manager Match Lab has come out with, you'll notice that you can actually win games with defensive tactics. Imagine that. So the fascinating thing here is that training also lives in one of those FMF files. That would be this file, training.fmf. So that FMF file is an archive, and the files inside the archive include files that control the default training schedules in Football Manager. These files also include the weight variables that control how Football Manager's training system actually works. Yeah, that's right. We've gone years, and I mean years, without realizing that Football Manager's training files were right in front of our noses the entire time. We could have made these modifications years ago if we wanted to. And it turns out that we can actually change a lot more than we originally thought. Okay, I'll give you a few examples of things that have changed. So, for example, in the vanilla game, rest is kind of a cheat code. The negative aspects of rest don't really hurt your players as much as they probably should. Well, that's the reason why the infamous meditation technique works so well, which is where you just have your players rest. Or the other version of it is where you have nothing but recovery sessions and maybe like an attacking session or something like that. The reason why it works well is because in the vanilla game, the negative aspects of rest really don't do that much to you. You can have your players rest all the time, give them individual training, and watch as they turn into physical monsters, especially in terms of speed. Well, in the Football Manager Match Lab version, rest includes much more of a risk, including a much higher injury risk. Quickness training has also been changed. The new version of quickness includes a much larger impact to morale as well as more of a training risk. And other things have changed as well. In fact, every single thing that's connected with team training has changed in this version. But honestly, just looking at the screens is not going to tell you the whole story. You see, the truth is that the description of trainings that Sports Interactive wrote for Football Manager do not accurately reflect how training actually works in the game. If you don't believe me, go back and watch what Max over at Evidence-Based Football Manager said. This is over a year ago now. He went through a whole bunch of tests to prove that training didn't work the way Sports Interactive says that it works. Anyway, that's one of the major reasons why training has been so frustrating for so many years. The default training schedules have also changed. Among other things, they are much more effective and are better balanced than they are in the normal Football Manager game. But, unfortunately, there are some things that we just can't change. Now, for example, we cannot modify individual training. Unfortunately, that is hard-coded into the game from what we can tell. This is similar to how we really can't change the match engine itself to make Gegenpress less overpowering. We can do things to make it so that the match engine acts differently, but we don't quite have the ability to jump into the actual engine itself. And unfortunately, what that means is that the exploitative tactics mostly still work. But even though we can't change everything, it still is really cool that we can change some things. And the crazy part about this is that there are still more things that we can change that we haven't messed around with yet. Well, currently there are plans to improve Football Manager's AI, and yeah, apparently we can change some of that without having to hack through the entire game. And there are some other things that we could change as well. For example, the questions that the media asks during interviews. And as many of you already know, the entire sound system behind Football Manager can also be changed. And that also doesn't count all of the database changes that the community has been making the whole time, and in some cases has been making for years now. Anyway, long story short, Football Manager is not dead. The community is going to keep this game alive even if Sports Interactive really screws up. And I hate to say it like this, but every indication has it that Sports Interactive will screw up again. Anyway, so come on and join us. Check out the link below to get to the FM Match Lab website and check out what we've come out with.